And we are back. Another week of USL Championship. Another week of the whole squad together here for our Striker Tejas podcast, your USL Championship podcast of the Striker Texas. Uh, Interesting past week. Interesting week to come. Let's start with the far west of the state, Joe Rodriguez, and I'm starting far west. I'll say it up front. I'm flying to LA tomorrow for the LAFC Austin FC game on Wednesday at Bank of California. Going to be able to meet. We're going to get all the founders of the Texas together. Myself, Chris Bills, and Rene van der Zanden. We're all going to be together at the stadium. So that's going to be a fun week. So since I'm going to be in LA, the closest to LA is you, El Paso, Joe. How was your weekend, my friend?
Everything was good. It's good to be back with you, Roberto, Edson, Jonathan. Exciting week full of sports. Obviously, with the El Paso Locomotive traveling over to Pittsburgh to play the Riverhounds in a very interesting match that developed over there with a lot of surprises. And we'll get into it. But other than that, everything's good out here in the borderland.
All right, going down south, to staying in the borderland, in McAllen area, my good friend Ochoa. How was your weekend?
How's it going, Roberto, uh, Joe, and Jonathan? Uh, it's it's been a great week. Honestly, it's been a great week, and it also helps that the Toros actually finally got back on the winning sheet this past weekend. But we'll get into more details later on about the game. But otherwise, it's been
We'll
splendid.
do that. I am missing a hat today. I don't see you wearing a hat, and that's I don't know if that's a good or bad sign. But let's go up I-35. Meet with our friend Jonathan Check in San Antonio. How are you, my friend?
Doing all right. Wow, I have friends. Yay. Um, anyway, no, it was a relaxing weekend. First time in about a month that I had stayed home to cover a match. So just sitting at home in front of the TV. Um, Looking forward to what will be an exciting weekend, one way or another, at the end of this week. Even if, as we'll get into, SAFC may or may not play, depending on their opponent and some things going on in their camp. But if nothing else, the UWS season has started, and the Athenians will have two matches this weekend. So, yeah.
All right, all right. Let's do this. Let's just go to the end of the podcast and come back. We all had our bets. I bet 5 points. Edson bet. I think Joe bet five also. Right? It was no Edson. I had 5 points for the Texas teams. Edson had five points. Joe and Jonathan had 2 points for this past weekend. The Texas teams got 6 points total, and the points that were dropped in Pittsburgh, which we discussed last week, how hard it is to play on that field. Such a small field, turf field, so it's a fast game, but on a small turf. Um in a general sense, how did that game go, Joe? You're muted, Joe. You're
It
muted.
lived it lived up to his billing, I believe. The way the match developed on Saturday night, it was a hard fought match. The Locos or the Locomotive over the course of the 90 minutes, um, they had their moments, but I don't think they were able to produce a thoroughly consistent performance over the course of the 90 minutes, and I think that's what affected them. That offensive spark was not there on Saturday night. I believe they only produced like four shots and only a couple on goal. So it was a tough night for El Paso Locomotive. They go into halftime tied 0-0, and then 30 seconds into the second half, um, they just on a counter attack before you knew it. They went on Pittsburgh was able to produce a four on two run in which they capitalized on the goal. Dixon crossed the ball from the right flank into Cicerone, and he was able to score the lone goal in the match. El Paso still had an opportunity to tie when they were awarded a penalty kick with, I believe, like in the 88th, 89th minute. Unfortunately for El Paso, Luis Lucho Solignac took the penalty kick and it was blocked by the Riverhound goalkeeper in an unfortunate situation. I think El Paso Locomotive this year they've missed on 3 different occasions, if memory serves me correct, as far as the penalty kicks go, and obviously this one was very costly. It cost them a point, but honestly, at the end of the day, y'all, I think it was a well-deserved victory by Pittsburgh. I think they were the better side over the course of 90 minutes. Does have to be said though that with in about the 70th minute, there was a player on a yellow card for Pittsburgh, the left fullback, and the referee clearly went to go give him his second yellow, and it was one of those things where you remember you see the referee, he's gonna pull a yellow instinctively because it was a yellow,
And then he remembers the other yellow and then
that he's on a yellow, and all of a sudden his hand just kind of goes away from his pocket. So obviously, I guess all we're left with is to wonder what would have been if the Locos would have taken a one-man advantage into the final 20 minutes of the match.
Yeah, well, it makes a difference. Again, it's a small field, so it makes less of a difference that extra man on a small field than it does on a big field. But I still think if we look back over the last 4 or 5 rounds, it's still a good vibe in El Paso, right? Even with this loss, I would guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the Locomotive are right now in a situation where obviously you need to accumulate 3 points at a time at home, and try and steal at least at bare minimum 1 point on the road, or still a win. But if you lose, I mean that might be also within the context of what your projection as far as point accumulations go, now that they're solidly in the hunt for one of the final spaces in the playoff zone.
I will leave the last, the best team in the USL Championship in Texas for last. So I'm gonna go back, talk about RGV, a very deserving win, or a very needed win. Maybe it's the right way to say it. Defeating Monterey. I told you, Edson, if you need a win, you want to play with the last team on the division, and I think it went well on your side.
Uh, I think personally, even with the win, there were so many things wrong with RGV. In the first couple of minutes, everything went wrong for the Toros. Daniel Luis gets injured and has to come off, so they had to use a substitute. They give up a goal in the 20th minute off of a free kick, off of a corner kick. And this was one of those situations where your center back gets out muscled by Hugh Roberts, allows him to make his run inside the box. Nobody goes up to him and tries to, or isn't able to deflect or try to make a move somewhere else rather than where he actually wants to go. And so Monterey Bay ends up going up on the scoreboard first. It was the last 7 minutes, of the first half. That's when Toros started getting a little bit of better luck offensively. They get a goal in the 42nd minute off of Emilio Icaza with a curved shot from outside the box that happened after a quick 1-2 passing between Emilio Icaza, between I think it was Ricky Reese and obviously Robert Coronado, Robert Coronado. And the keeper, Carlos Herrera, managed to get his fingertips on it, but that just made the goal a whole lot better. A couple minutes later, Robert Coronado gets the goal that led the comeback for RGVFC. In the second half, it was a lot more of the Toros trying to bode well defensively and try to limit the opportunities by Monterey Bay. But even then, Monterey Bay had some good opportunities. There was one particular play where Colin Miller had to make a last ditch save, in order to avoid the equalizer by Monterey Bay. It was after the 71st minute, after a second yellow card towards Robbie Crawford. That's when I felt like the team started to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable. They were allowing Monterey Bay to have the ball, but they were not letting them, have as much clear opportunities to try to find that equalizer. Also, right at the very end, you could see where not everybody was in tune. And what I mean by that is that there were some players that had the right idea of maintaining possession of the ball, try to burn some minutes off of it. And they had players like Frank Lopez, where his mentality was, oh, I need to attack. I need to find somebody. And that disconnect made them lose a couple of balls that granted, possession and some other opportunities for Monterey Bay to find that equalizer. I think in the end, it's a much needed win for RGVFC to bring in some good motivation to some of these players, especially Emilio Icaza. I think I mentioned it, if not here, I mentioned it to my friends, that Emilio Icaza had been in a really bad slump this season so far. And I think getting a goal will probably be some good motivation for him, at least going up to this upcoming match.
Yeah, we always talk about this every other week, maybe, or not as often, but we always talk about there are moments that you want to play well in despite of winning, and there's some moments that you need to win in despite of playing well. And I think the moment that RGV is on that moment that you rather get the 3 points even if you don't deserve it as much, right? If I think that was what RGV needed, and then I'll go to the other side of the table, which is San Antonio FC winning 2-0 Miami away, so playing in Florida, which could have been a moment that you would rather San Antonio playing well instead of winning the game. But did they win the game and play well, Jonathan?
I'd say so, yeah. This was, first of all, for SAFC, it was at the end of a brutal and very busy week, and they'd started with 2 losses. So I think I even saw Nick Murray of the USL Championship saying, like, you wouldn't hold it against them if they turned up kind of flat in Miami. It was busy and I'm sure mentally draining with those 2 losses. So for them to come to Miami, really have a great control on the game, shut down what Miami was throwing at them, get the goals that they needed themselves. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the most exciting performance, maybe not, that different from others they've had earlier this season, but it was a solid performance, like I said, and a good way to end a rather busy and in some ways frustrating week.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a chance to talk about the game before that, which was the Open Cup game. They lost 1-0 to Houston in Houston, and we were there together, Edson, and you talked a bunch about it after the game. Was the fact that San Antonio could have won that game, right? So the psychological part of losing that game that that you could win, that would be a big win for the franchise. It must hurt, and be able to come back and then following game, a couple of days later, and bring a win in an away game that was also a difficult one that we also talked about it last week. It was going to be a hard one, and taking the win, that's going to be good. Now, talking about next week, there might or might not be a game. Can you tell our listeners what's going on?
Yeah, so this past weekend, not Sacramento, the Switchbacks, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, and San Diego Loyal SC were going to play a match. It got postponed. The USL announced, I think it might have been the day before, or maybe it was the day of, because multiple people in the Switchbacks organization tested positive for COVID-19, so they don't play. And for SAFC, that in a sense maybe was kind of nice because they didn't have to worry about San Diego catching up to them in the table, and they could catch up to the Switchbacks. So even if you've they've now got that game in hand. Just a nice thing mentally. Well, the Switchbacks now are scheduled to come to San Antonio this weekend on Saturday. So we'll see if they're able to. I remember last year SAFC had to postpone 2 consecutive matches in August when they had a bit of a outbreak in the team. So we'll see if the Switchbacks are able to field a team on Saturday, and if so, it's going to be an exciting top of the table clash.
It's going to be a very, very nice game to not miss. Usually, and we're just going to say usually, every situation has shown different when you talk about COVID, but most likely we will have the confirmation or not of the game by Thursday or the Friday in the morning at the latest. So stay tuned at the Striker Texas. As soon as we get that confirmation, we're going to make the announcement on social media, and also we're gonna have the pre-game the preview of the game written by Jonathan, and of course, if there's no game, it's still gonna have a piece making sure that everybody understands why the game is not gonna happen. So follow the Striker Texas for that. Double game for El Paso and two very difficult games moving forward by Wednesday. So if you're listening this, it's most likely today or tomorrow the game. But playing Sacramento on Wednesday at home, then flying to California to play Orange County, the current champions of USL Championship on Saturday. What should we expect on those two games?
No, well, obviously it'll be an opportunity for El Paso. Obviously with 6 points on the line here over the next 4 days, starting on Wednesday, an opportunity to really get themselves in solidly into what will be the playoff zone of the Western Conference. Obviously, this is going to be the second time and the last time for 2022 that the Locomotive faced the Republic. You do have to remember that El Paso faced Sacramento in their opening season game, a game that El Paso lost by the score of 3-1. So it's going to be very interesting to see tomorrow when we have media day, what John Hutchinson and whoever they allow us to speak with have to say about what their outlook is going to be as far as facing Sacramento Wednesday night in El Paso. Obviously, there's going to be that theme, that element of payback to try and, just make things even for the year and for El Paso to get the win at home. And then, of course, a couple of days later, they'll fly to the West Coast, Southern California, to face an Orange County team. Like you said, Roberto, they're the defending champions. But up until this point in the season, 9 matches in, Orange County is a team that has 3 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws for a total of 12 points. Obviously, might have a little championitis going on with them right now. But no, I've said it time and time again on this panel before. It always seems when El Paso goes to Orange County, it always develops into a very bogged down, kind of almost boring game. So I'm looking forward to see this John Hutchinson offense, if they can change that, because that really has been the case with El Paso every time they go to Southern California to go play.
All right, sounds good. So we got we could say an international star coming to McAllen this weekend, where RGV is going to host San Diego, and U.S. soccer national team star, maybe one of the biggest in the history of the national team. Is that too much to give it to him, guys? London Donovan is coming to McAllen this weekend. So for those who don't know, he's the technical director and the head coach for San Diego Loyals.
You would have
So
to add Clint Dempsey on.
yeah, well, I think it's a good. So let's say just to be fair, he's definitely top 5, right? Top 5 in the history, right? I think that's an
Mhm.
easy one to take. What to expect from RGV from the totals in this game?
Difficult match for the Toros. You're talking about a San Diego Loyal that has 2 wins and 2 draws on the road, with only with 2 draws against New Mexico United and against Oakland Roots. But you know who they beat? You know who they beat in these in their away wins? Tampa
Who?
Tampa Bay Rowdies, and Phoenix Rising.
Who beat Phoenix this weekend 3-1 also, right? So Tampa is in a good. So yeah, I agree with you. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a hard one.
When you couple that with how difficult the difficult situation that RGV currently is, I think just looking at it on paper, it's going to be a very dark night for RGVFC. And honestly, I think it makes sense. It makes sense for people that are looking at this to say that the favorite to win in this matchup is San Diego Loyal, despite playing at HB Park.
All right. A good weekend or a tough weekend, if we may. We got some of the top teams in the table playing against the Texas teams, including the top of the table, one of the top of the table, San Antonio FC, who's been there since basically the beginning of the championship this year. So we have a challenge this for our trying to guess, which we have proven very bad on guessing results. But let's keep playing this. There might be 4 games or might be 3 games with this, right? So let's make 2 predictions. If there's 4 games, and
Okay.
if there's 3 games, is that fair? Can we do
Sounds
that?
sounds
All
good.
right. So I'm gonna do the table here for 4 games and for 3. So for 4 games, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna put 7 points for Texas, and if we do 3 games, I'm gonna put 6 points for Texas. Edson Ochoa.
I'm going to go with 5. Actually, we'll go with 3. 3
So
draws and a loss.
all right, so 3. And if it's only 3 games,
If it's only 3 games, it will be just 2.
all right, that's the positive Edson we're seeing there. Very optimistic. Very, very optimistic. I like that. Jonathan Jack.
I'm also going to go ahead and go with 7 points for if there are 4 matches. If there are only 3, I think I'm going to go ahead and say 4, which kind of tells you, I'm deciding
Your
to be a little
prediction on that
optimistic for a
specific
change.
game. That's good. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. Uh, in El Paso, what do you tell me, Joe?
I gotta, man. I'm trying to add variety here to the situation, but I just can't. I'm gonna have to go exactly with what you said, Roberto. 4 games, 7 points, 3 games. We'll go with 6.
All right, sounds good. So we got a good prediction here. Again, I'm always optimistic, and I think the teams have allowed me to be optimistic, right? Because in despite of the roller coaster that this USL Championship is, we have shown over and over again that all 3 teams can do well. It's just a matter of getting the right pieces together, and we can be optimistic at least into half of the season, and then we can start really be a little bit more scared. So, any final words? And I think we're gonna really make Maya happy today. We're gonna be able to finish under 30 minutes. We got to some time, so let's play around here a little bit. So let's go with the same thing that our friends in MLS they do every Monday morning on their podcast. Is what was the best thing you ate this weekend? And so I can give you guys some time to think. I'll say I had a very nice barbecue with my friends Saturday night, and we had some very good picanha, guys, and that was amazing. Anytime you got picanha in front of me, I'm gonna say that's my favorite food of the weekend. So I see Jonathan. I think you already have that. I can see on your face that. Actually, no, I might be putting you in the spot here. Do you know what was the best thing that you ate this weekend?
Yeah, that was the face of kind of just being like, oh, what do I pick? Okay. Um, just not so much for I don't know. The food I had this weekend wasn't very exciting. I'm going to go with something I think I technically had it on Friday, but that counts as the weekend enough. We had some like tortillas that we got from a a restaurant that we brought home, and I took two of them out, heated them up, slapped some cheese, and made a homemade quesadilla. It wasn't
That's that.
special,
It
but
was not from Taco Cabana, right? Please,
no,
please,
it
or
was not.
Edson is gonna start shaking and have problems there. So good real tortillas. Is that what you're saying?
Sure, I'm just proud of myself for kind of spicing it up and making lemons out of or lemonade out of lemons.
All right. Since we're talking about Edson and his favorite restaurant, Taco Cabana, where was your favorite food of the weekend, Edson?
By far, no competition. My mom on Saturday made some chicken breasts on the skillet with some fideo, some homemade salsa, spicy one to add to it, and some corn tortillas from a tortilleria from here. By far, no competition on anything that I ate this weekend. That was the best.
All right. So thanks for mom there. Give a shout out to her. What's her name?
Josefina.
All right. So we got a cook in the group here. And what about you, Joe?
I gotta say, Edson, your mom has the greatest name ever because Josefina is my mother's name too. I didn't
Oh
know
my
that. That's
God.
cool.
That's pretty cool.
Small world.
That's cool. And speaking of which, yeah, I gotta go with a great meal. My mom made she made some nice pasta alfredo with some grilled chicken too on top, which is a really delicious meal.
Were
On
there any
Friday night.
leftovers?
It was a great way. Yeah, right. No, I was still digging into that on
Sounds
Saturday
good.
afternoon. I was still digging into that on Saturday afternoon, but no, it was a nice little pasta alfredo with grilled chicken. It was delicious.
All right, sounds good, guys. Once again, you have heard me saying this week after week. We can only do this if you support the Striker Texas, and the best way for you to support us is subscribing. For less than a beer or coffee on a fancy coffee shop, you can have the best quality news of soccer in the state of Texas, and follow us on social media. And as always, support local soccer. Thank you, guys. See you next week.